Did you watch the other debates?
I watched the vice presidential and I watched the second presidential. I didn't get a chance
With a
to
slightly
watch.
different eye, I'm assuming.
They were all different.
Well, I mean, but you
Oh,
watched
yeah,
it with a
yeah,
slightly
yeah.
different eye than you did probably
Absolutely.
in 2008.
As it turns out, all the schools I thought did a bang-up job. They did. We actually had kind of got together and had a lunch afterward and kind of just caught up. It was fun. Yeah, it was good. We're all like, give us 8 years. I don't mind doing it again, but give us 8, not 4. We totally on site, not just in the media filing center. We had about 3,000 members of the media, 700 foreign. Okay, so this is a big deal internationally. Nielsen rating was huge. Obviously, this was a pretty contested, if you will, event. 200 million international viewers, 10.3 million tweets during the 90-minute debate. So our Vice Chancellor of Marketing, Kevin Carroll, he's amazing. He knows analytics and all that kind of stuff really well, so they did a really nice job here. We totally had 109 events that were tied to the debate, so it was really a ton of work. Of the 300 seats that we were allocated, 297 went to students.
Nice.
Yeah. The other 3, the Chancellor did not attend. He committed that all the seats were going to go to students as much as possible. The only 3 seats that were not given to students were some of the key sponsors. And we were not going to do that, and I think the Chancellor, when he saw how much they were putting on the table, you know, it was the right thing to do. It was.
Cisco, and Cisco.
There's another C in there. Yeah. So again, the Debate Fest was a huge success. We did do an ROI analysis, which is obviously always, we did a pre and we did a post. This is the post numbers. Total cost was about $5 million. That includes the $1.65 million fee. We estimated in total exposure about $55 million worth of marketing value, which is huge for an institution our size. We estimate about $36 million on the day of the debate alone, but you can see how there's been pre and lasting effect because of the value. We have seen our undergrad apps go up about 10,000 this year, so we think the exposure. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that, not just the debate. We're awesome.
So your ROI number, you reused a lot of stuff. Is that included in this ROI analysis?
Yes, it is.
There it is.
Great
Couldn't
lead.
say it. Yeah, I'm just right here, it's softball, so.
So out of that $5 million, okay, we estimate, and it didn't cost us this, we estimate the value of the technology that is permanent was about $2 million to our infrastructure. This would have taken us 2.5 years on our current budget from a capital
So
standpoint.
it's really like an Olympics or a World's Fair where you build all this for the event and then
That's
it
right.
goes away, but you're left with a substantial
That's right.
permanent.
That's right. Now, this was all infrastructure under the scenes though, because we didn't have to build any building, because I mean, the Magnus Arena is pretty amazing. But a lot of the cost is just the service providers to actually come in, like the company to build the stage. We had to pay for all of that. The CPD doesn't pay for anything. We paid for everything. Okay, if we had to pay the police to be there, we had to pay for it. Transportation, because we had a credentialing center, which was in our Newman Center for Performing Arts, which is right there at Lifton University. We bust them from there. That's where they were cleared and scanned and all that kind of stuff. Bust all 1,000 people that attended from there by bus. So I mean, we had to pay for all that transportation, all that kind of stuff. A 1/4 mile radius around campus, all the manholes had to be welded.
No, the stuff you don't think about.
Guess who paid for that? Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
You had to unweld it.
Unwell them.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, some of our sponsor carriers, CenturyLink, they did not charge us for that. It was kind of part of.
On your power, you brought in mobile power units,
Mhm.
but you had a lot of redundancy on your circuitry as far as phones and internet and all that.
Yeah, we did.
Was there any chance or discussions with Excel about a second CO kind of thing? or-
Oh, well, the campus actually has 2 separate grid feeds already. So we just had to make
So
sure.
they just weren't big enough?
Right. Well, the thing we want to do is, in case there was any major loss, we had generator backup. So we really had
Mostly
3.
backup, yeah.
So we had 2. We already have two grids. We had to do some electrical conduit work to boost some of the capabilities in some areas. And those conduit are permanent, which means we're ready for next time. But then what Excel helped us do is make sure that we could test and verify that both grids were there. Okay, and then we had the generator power on top of that. And a lot of that generator power too were for the trucks outside as well. Okay, because we don't have the capability on our campus, and we could do the stuff inside, but for the outside stuff, that's a lot of power needed for all those media trucks and
And that
stuff.
goes away when it's done, so temporary generators are good for that.
Yeah, like more preparation than the Super Bowl.
That's right. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I was just
it's very much like
They
that.
could have used
It
it.
is.
If, when the power went out, then it would have been just right back on. No.
No, thank you.
So you were just showing the numbers on the return on investment, and you said in your pyramid that the number one thing you were focused on was the quality, and
Right.
the cost was a secondary consideration. How did you manage your upfront costs and those expenditures, and did they stay within the normal bounds that you would have expected them to?
Yeah, so the budget that the Chancellor set for the whole thing, he gave us a target budget, which I think was 5.5. And that was based on information he'd gotten from other presidents, from other universities that done that. So it's kind of nebulous, to be honest with you. At one point, our overall budget, the IT budget honestly was I think from the start to finish, it varied 20%, which is pretty damn close for having those kind of nebulous specs. The overall budget, when they first did the first estimate of everything, it was 6.5. So we were able to find ways within the quality to get from 6.5 to 5. Yeah, and a lot of that, honestly, was through sponsorships. A lot of that was we were able to do some of the redundancy. It was physically there, but we didn't pay for it. So there's a lot of ways of doing that. And to offset the cost, some of the other projects where we use some of the technology. So, for instance, out of my budget, for our capital budget, I think it was just under 600,000 I paid in, because these were things we were going to use for projects I needed anyway. So that 5 million doesn't include the 600 that I paid. Does that make sense? So 5 million was what was really paid, because we actually had a separate account set up for that. So that's how we kind of nibbled it back. Anything that we reused, we charged it to that building project, not to the big project. I think I answered your question.
How did you get your team up to speed? I'm assuming this is the biggest, probably most complicated product they've
By
worked
far.
on. So did you bring knowledge to your team, or did you augment your team with the knowledgeable resources to pull us off?
So the answer is yes and yes. We actually did both of those. Obviously, we did a lot of training with CenturyLink and Cisco. We were all sat around the table to actually design the network, the telecom systems. So it was kind of a joint approach with everyone. So I think our team walked away with so much knowledge that they didn't have before. So part of it was we kind of relied on Cisco for the overall design on the network and wireless side, but then on CenturyLink for the obviously telecom channelized services, because they know it better than we did. We brought Comcast in to help us to design the closed circuit television. They know it really, really well. So we literally brought in the best of breed to help us, but the team walked away with a ton of knowledge. Now, we can design wonderful networks. Our lead network engineer, Chad Burnham, he's amazing, but nothing to this scope and size.
Sure.
So could he have designed it? Sure. Does it make more sense to have somebody that's done bigger projects work with them? Absolutely. So this is just some of the numbers. So 18 months from the bid to the actual event. So there was that 6 to 7 month waiting period, knowing whether we were selected or not. It literally, from the day when we started building anything, it took 8 months to actually build. So there's a lot of planning going on prior to the build actually starting. So somebody asked about the number. This was the peak. We had 145 people, but keep in mind they weren't all there at the same time. So this is how many people that we had credentialed and were cleared by the Secret Service to actually be on site. This includes us, Comcast, CenturyLink, Cisco, right? Because all the Rent-A-Center work was done prior, so they didn't have to get, they'd already dropped their stuff off and stuff by that point. The amount of power it took to actually drive this event, I think, is pretty amazing. And I knew I had the feet of cable in here somewhere, so 100,000 feet, that's a lot.